pressure looks good.
Following up. Roger, roll, planet. Flight downside, speed off.
Yikes. You bet. Okay. We don't need any more of these.
All right, folks, you know the drill here. Let us know if you can hear me. John Galloway for NASASpaceflight here, kicking off another live launch broadcast. United Launch Alliance giving an attempt to launch another SBIRS? Chris will pronounce that for me. The GEO-5 mission here out at Slick 41 today. So let us know, do you have audio and video? And when I get that confirmation, I'll get Chris to pronounce that for me. I see some 5x5s in chat. I figured out that's how we start these live streams. It's not like, hey guys, what's up? Or anything like that. It's, you know the drill. But if you've joined us for another broadcast today, you do in fact know the drill. We appreciate y'all joining us. And let's check in out in the field with Chris Gebhardt. Chris, we got you on?
You do indeed, Das. How is everyone doing this morning? Afternoon, whatever it is.
Whatever time it is. Y'all, Chris has rolled out in person. He is on the ITL Causeway out there with a really unique perspective on Slick 41. Chris, you want to tell us about what we see there real quick? We haven't really seen this before from this angle.
No, we haven't. We're in like optimal position today. So what you are looking at, obviously, the thing that is venting is the Atlas V, right? It is nice and full with its liquid oxygen, liquid kerosene, and liquid hydrogen in all of its various stages, as well as the solid rocket boosters filled with solid rocket propellant. But what's great about this is you can see the Atlas there behind its integration tower. This is usually way off to the side based on where we are at the Cape, or not even visible if we're watching an Atlas launch from the Kennedy Space Center press site. But this is really cool because we're almost directly in line, so you can see its house where it's built, and then you can see the pad where it leaves its house permanently. So it's really
cool.
cool.
Big building that says ULA on it up at the top, not the structure in the back that says ULA vertically, but the big blue ULA logo, that's at a separate building, and that building's like a quarter mile or something away from the launch pad, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It's
small...
called... Yep, sorry. My alarm to feed the dog lunch if I was home went off. She's already...
Oh, no.
She's good. She's
okay.
Good. Bucks is good. Starbucks good. Yeah, so that building is called the Vertical Integration Facility. So it's where, just like SpaceX rockets are put together in the horizontal integration facility, the Atlases are stacked in the vertical integration facility. So basically just take it, rotate it 90 degrees, same exact thing as the HIF that we're very used to for the Falcons now. And very much akin to like the vehicle assembly building for NASA and for the SLS rocket right now.
Yeah, gotcha. So the building in the foreground, it's over 500 meters away from the rocket. The building that says ULA on top is a significant distance away. They look really close, but actually Atlas V and its service structure that says ULA in white on it, that actually rolls out to the launch tower, the sort of upside-down Tetris L-shaped thing there that's next to the rocket. It rolls out there on rails, and they've got this transporter that moves it from the big building that says ULA on it about a quarter mile, 1,800 feet or 575 meters down these rails to the launch pad. So an interesting perspective here. That big building is not anywhere near that. But we're able to see this, Chris, because you rolled out to the ITL Causeway today. And I know slowly but surely some of our restrictions for media coverage are loosening up a little bit, aren't they?
A little bit, yes.
A little bit.
A little bit, yes. It's an interesting day for me. Personally, this is day 14, so I'm considered fully vaccinated. And thinking about it today, I was like, that's a huge feat of scientific and technological accomplishment for, vaccines within a year. Here I am today marking that anniversary for me, marking that milestone for me with another major science and technology launch, with an Atlas, doing something also very extremely hard and difficult, but making it look easy. So just wanted personally to say thank you to all the first responders, everyone who, created the vaccines and has had a hand in getting us to this point where we can start to talk about getting back to normal and seeing friends. Like, Das, I know I can't wait to see you down here for a launch again. It's been a long time.
I have not seen a launch in person in over a year, and I used to go down to most of them.
Right.
So I cannot wait to come back down and hang out. I hope, Chris, that with your improved 5G reception, we get a nice solid video signal here today.
Well, yes, I do feel positively buzzing today.
Good deal. I look forward to coming down there and being able to see a launch in person with you. It's been a while. But tell us a little bit about the mission today. I mean, this is the SBIRS GEO-5 mission, and it is something about space-based infrared. Tell us about the mission.
Yes, yes. So this is called the SBIRS. It's space-based infrared radar system. It's the fifth. It's the 11th overall SBIRS satellite, and the fifth that will be going to geostationary orbit. And basically what these are early warning missile launch satellites for the U.S. military. They provide some other services too, specifically to active duty military and allied forces around the world. But primarily they are designed to detect the infrared signature of missile launches. This includes regular rockets like that go off from the Cape that take perfectly harmless scientific payloads or clandestine military satellites into orbit, and the ones we don't like to talk about, right? The rockets that are not used for peaceful purposes. But they're designed to be able to catch all of that, provide real-time information to military units, not just at headquarters around the world. This is the 11th overall of them. They're in 2 different orbits. So the way that this constellation works is you have 3 right now, 4 soon to be in geostationary orbit. You have 4 now, 5 soon to be in geostationary orbit because this is SBIRS 5.
Right.
And you also have 6 of them in what are known as Molnia orbits. These are highly elliptical orbits where their perigees come down close to the planet, like around 500 kilometers, but for their perigee, but their apogee, or point of farthest regression in their orbit from Earth, is upwards of like 20,000 kilometers. So they're very, very elliptical orbits. Basically, it helps the constellation constantly see every part of the world at the same time. And that's what they are designed for. What's interesting about them from military purposes is they're not classified. We know, some things on them are, right? We don't know exactly what every piece of technology on them does, but we know what they look like. They don't try to hide them. It's not a classified mission. We know the launch window is about 40 minutes. It's going to geostationary orbit. It's not a classified mission. It's not like some of the other ULA flights where we're like, well, here's what it likely is because it's classified. No, we know exactly what it is. So one of those military missions that they don't bother to hide from us.
Makes sense. So again, folks, if you're just joining us, that is an Atlas rocket. It's an Atlas 5 rocket in the background. That's at Space Launch Complex, Slick 40, SLC. If you see down in the banner, it says SLC 41. That is Slick, if you want to be cool, like the cool rocket kids, say Slick 41. And it's out at Cape Canaveral SFS. That's Space Force Station now at Florida. But United Launch Alliance making another attempt to launch this mission. Now, yesterday, I think the mission was scrubbed, wasn't it? There was a problem with some GSE?
There was.
Sensor or something.
Yeah, so they had some issues yesterday when they went to chill down the liquid oxygen to start chilling down the propellant lines and the propellant itself to move it from the storage sphere over into the vehicle. They had off-nominal conditions that they saw in the temperature ranges that persisted beyond what they were allowed to. They needed to verify some placement and some configurations at the pad that necessitated sending people back to the launch pad. And eventually they just ran out of window because there was only 40 minutes to work with and the problem required more than that. But obviously today, they fixed that overnight. They swapped out whatever that was and got into a good configuration. They were actually early and ahead of the timeline today and ended up having to wait until the right time in the countdown to start fueling. But they were actually ready to do it ahead of time today. So things looking much better today than yesterday.
All right. Speaking of how things are looking, what's the weather like? It's not looking crazy windy today, at least.
No. So that was the thing yesterday. You always want the rocket to go on the first time, but there's always that moment of like, oh, come on, we so rarely get solid rocket boosters anymore. And it was totally overcast yesterday. We would have seen it for maybe a minute, if that.
Right.
But totally clear today out directly above the pad and out to the east, which is the trajectory the rocket will be following. Off to the west, we have our normal summertime stuff starting to build with some of the sea breezes, but nothing like yesterday. And in fact, the weather probability of violation has been dropping throughout the day as we get closer and closer to the anticipated liftoff just under an hour from now.
Good deal. And that's what we've got in the upper left-hand corner, the interestingly L- timer. We changed it. I don't know if we've got Michael on comms, but it doesn't say T-.
You're not supposed to mention that mistake.
That's why I was going to ask.
Too many Starlink launches, so I forgot for ULA launch I have to change our timer to L-, because ULA has built-in holds. It means they have a couple planned holds in the countdown. So when we are broadcasting, we want to tell all the viewers when the launch is going to happen. But when there's a built-in hold, the T- countdown is not counting down to the launch time. It's counting down to how soon could they theoretically launch if they did not have the built-in holds. The L- time you can see on your screen is specifically how much time until launch.
So that means if I'm looking at a clock, if everything goes to plan in 52 minutes and 28, 27, 26 seconds, that's when the rocket should launch. No holds or anything like that.
Correct. But the actual T- clock right now includes a 10-minute hold at T- 4 minutes. So we're actually at T- 42 minutes at this time.
T- 42 minutes in actual time is L- 52 minutes. We get that quite a bit, especially when we have the ULA broadcast up, and it's like, wait, what's the difference between L- and T-? But you'll notice that our clock is slightly different because it is just under 52 minutes.
Sorry, and I said that wrong. It's a 15-minute hold, I believe, Chris?
I believe so, yes.
Yes, 15-minute holds. They changed it. It used to be 10 minutes, but as they've commonized the systems between Delta and Atlas, I believe it's now 15 minutes. And we just actually heard T- 37 minutes called out over the countdown net. So it is T- 37 minutes.
Good deal. So T- 37 minutes, L- 51 minutes. If you're trying to keep track and you're like, oh, do I have time to get a snack or something? The launch on your clock is about 51 minutes away now. We always sort of run into that with the ULA counts just because of the way they talk about it. Of course, we're always going to be here with the live streams, getting some live questions, y'all. So if you have questions for us about the mission or the launch today, tag us in chat at NASASpaceflight. And the same thing with Super Chats. I see a couple Super Chats coming in. Nicotine Jenkins, thank you so much. Says no scrub Tuesday. We appreciate you,
I like
Nicotine. I hope we don't get a scrub today. I agree, but we'll see how it goes. Brett Bagozi? Not sure, but a new member. We appreciate the support, Brett. And then let's see here. Thomas Enfang says, Chris, congratulations on your vax. Go Atlas. Also, I got to ask, are any of you going to apply for the Who Wants to Be an Astronaut TV show on Discovery? What? Who wants to be an astronaut?
That was news today. Discovery is buying a seat on what is believed to be the Axiom 2 mission to the space station. So they're going to do a reality TV show competition where competitors are going to go through astronaut training or amplified astronaut training to make it entertaining for TV. And then the winner will get to fly to the space station for 8 days.
Wow.
Interesting.
Game show. We'll have to read more about that. I don't know that I'm going to try. Chris, you want to... Who wants to be an astronaut?
I won't do that, no.
I don't know. You have a really good chance if there's a shuttle knowledge quiz as part of the scoring or something. You'd be head and shoulders above everybody else.
That's true. That's true, but then I'd have to climb a mountain, and that's where it would go downhill. Pun intended.
Thomas, thank you so much for the super chat there. We appreciate you. Here's a question, actually, Chris. You can get this one. How much bigger is Vulcan? So the upcoming rocket launching from the same pad.
Yeah, much bigger. Shockingly bigger. You don't really realize it when they're talking about, when they're just talking about the differences, right? And you're just reading what the size differences are. Seeing them together, near the same infrastructure and how this works, Vulcan's a lot bigger. When the Atlas booster goes through that. Goes through the process of being picked up outside the vertical integration facility, the big white building structure that says ULA horizontally across the top, even though it's a vertical building. I just realized that in my head. That's a good, I like that. Basically, when you see the Atlas booster goes in, right? There's quite a lot of room because this was originally built for Atlas, right? So there's a lot of clearances on either side. When big ol' Vulcan goes in there, very tight clearances to get it in and get it over its new ML. And in fact, they're so different from a size perspective, they couldn't even modify the Atlas mobile launcher to accommodate Vulcan and like just build another one so they would have two that they could use for both of them. No, there's a dedicated Atlas ML, which is what Atlas is on right now, and there is a dedicated Vulcan ML that the Vulcan Pathfinder is currently mated to in one of the other support buildings just off screen here. But Vulcan is significantly bigger than Atlas.
Gotcha. And that's actually, like, years ago I did a tour of Pad 41 and got to walk around, and they were in the middle of upgrading some of the GSE there, the ground service equipment, increasing the water capacity, increasing the tank capacity for the fuel and stuff like that. So they have been working for a couple of years to upgrade this pad to support, hey, not only Vulcan, but also the crew access tower is there as well.
Right. I mean, that's the sort of odd inverted L-shaped tower that you see. Right next to the Atlas there is the crew launch tower for Starliner missions. So actually, in a couple months, on July 30th, I believe it's 2:30 in the afternoon, is when the Starliner orbital flight test 2 is currently scheduled for. Atlas has a very busy manifest over the next 3 months. It's got this one today, it's got one in June, and it's got Starliner in July. So we'll see that crew access tower used again for practice on OFT2. Especially once the vehicle's out there, getting astronauts out there, getting them practice on the tower with the vehicle. We'll see all of that happen again for the second orbital flight test of Starliner in July.
Good deal. So, Chris, I'm going to go through and grab some more questions here.
Yeah,
and I will toss some over to you. We can start with this one from Stephen McGee, and it says, what is the thrust on the Atlas 421? The good news is the name of the rocket actually helps you figure out what the thrust is, right?
It is, but there's addition involved now. So in a way, so yes, in this case for the Atlas 421, the thrust is 3 at liftoff and 1 after staging.
That's correct.
Yes, because even though you will see when the Atlas lifts off, even though you will see its main engine, the RD-180 that is attached to the base of the copper-colored Atlas core stage, right, you'll see 2 nozzles, but it's actually only 1 engine. It's 1 engine with dual nozzles. Right. So it's a single RD-180, so that gives you 1. And then there are 2 AJ-60As, Aerojet Rocketdyne 60A solid rocket motors strapped to either side of the Atlas core to help augment it, because SBIRS is a little heavy to get to geostationary orbit and geostationary transfer orbit and still be able to dispose of your Centaur. So one of the things that ULA has started doing is adding solid rocket boosters to rockets to ensure that enough propellant is left in the Centaur to safely dispose of it at the end of the mission.
Gotcha.
So for that reason, the thrust is 3 at liftoff, and then after staging, after the boosters drop, and then after the boosters drop, this thrust is 1, whether you're still on the Atlas core stage or on the single engine RL-10 upper stage.
Yep.
What is important about that upper stage, though, since we're talking about propulsion, this is the first time that the RL-10C1-1 engine is being used on the Centaur. So it's a slightly different variant of the Centaur upper stage engine of that RL-10 that's being used on this particular Atlas, making its debut flight with the Atlas today.
Excellent. So y'all, just really quickly, I did this to just make sure. We were sort of joking around there, but you see on the white bar down at the bottom of the screen, it says ULA, that's United Launch Alliance, and it says it's an Atlas 5 421, right? And we were joking about the thrust being 3 because in the way they designate their rockets, the 421, that's the Atlas variant that they're flying today. And just by looking at those numbers, you can learn some things about the rocket. The 4 is the size of the payload fairing at the top. So it's a 4-meter diameter payload fairing. There's an Atlas 5 521 that could fly as well, where they have a bigger payload fairing on the top. But today it's a 4. And then the 2, like Chris was saying, the 2 stands for 2 solid rocket motors strapped to the sides. You can see it in the shot here. You see the white pipe down on the bottom of the rocket, just above the trees. There's like one white pipe sticking off the side of it. That's actually a strap-on motor. That's an SRB that they add to the side of it. And there's another one on the other side of it as well because it's a 421. The 2 means that they've got 2 of those SRBs on it. And the last one, the 1 number, that's the number of engines in the upper stage. Can't see it now, but that's what Chris was talking about when it's on its way and it stages off of the booster. The SRBs will come off. The booster will separate, then the upper stage will continue on its merry way, and it will do that using 1 engine. So just the Atlas V is the type of rocket. In the 421 are some designations about how the rocket is put together to support the mission. Right, Chris?
Yes, and I believe there's something like 21 possible configurations or variants of the Atlas V, but only 10 of them have actually flown.
Yeah. Because you can have a 401, which means 4-meter fairing, no SRBs, 0 SRBs with 1 engine in the upper stage.
Yep.
Or you can have a 551, 5-meter fairing, 5 SRBs. Yeah.
A 552 is even technically, and that's where most of the variants actually come in, right? Is the most of the variants with different number of solid rocket boosters have flown. Yep. But there's only ever been 1 flight with a dual engine Centaur upper stage, and that was the first Starliner OFT mission. So all Starliner missions will fly in the dual engine Centaur upper stage configuration. And I know originally when Dream Chaser was going to be launching on Atlas, it was a 2-engine upper stage as well, but those have all shifted over to Vulcan. So I do not believe, at least off the top of my head, that aside from Starliner, there are any missions that have a dual upper stage booked.
Gotcha.
At this point on the Atlas.
Yeah, there is an update on the countdown net we just heard. We're not allowed to broadcast that, by the way, but I am listening. They are currently discussing an issue with a valve to top the liquid oxygen on the Atlas V booster. It sounds like the current limits on that valve are not going to allow the booster to be filled with liquid oxygen all the way. So they have convened the anomaly team to provide a recommendation, but it does not sound too serious. If I had to guess, this would be one of those things that they come back and say adjust this parameter to allow it to properly allow enough liquid oxygen into the tank, but they have convened the anomaly team, so I thought I would pass that along.
Perfect.
Good deal.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the interesting things, Das, right? Like, because we get so used to like other countdown nets that are very quiet, that ULA is very talkative on their countdown net. So
yes,
and there are a lot of like small little things that crop up that they handle. They're just very vocal about them, right? So we know about them. Doesn't, like Michael said, indicate like, oh no, panic like yesterday, because yesterday was kind of like, oh, they can't fuel it. That's a problem. Yes. You know, trying to figure out how to get the fuel level to the right point with a valve that's not working, you got some chance of getting that to work. Right. Yep. So, yeah, no one panic.
They're going to keep working on that, and Michael, let us know if we get any more information on that anomaly. But it's one of the things, those little things happen every launch. You got to realize there's thousands of sensors watching all sorts of different things on the rocket. Pressures and temperatures and the state of a specific valve or pin or something like that. There's sensors, then there's redundant sensors, and they even compare multiple sensors. And they're like, this sensor says that it's this pressure, but this sensor says it's this pressure, and this one disagrees. And so sometimes you'll see them just make decisions like that. Okay, 2 of the sensors say it's good, 1 of the sensors says it's a little bit off. Let's take that one sensor out, and we're going to keep going forward. But ULA is very talkative on the countdown net. For press, we have access to it, but we're not allowed to play that back in real time. We can tell you what they say, we just can't pipe that audio into the broadcast. So
and actually, I was just, well, you're getting another question, just a really quick addition to that. Exactly what you just said. If you remember, if you were with us for the Delta IV launch that happened in April out of Vandenberg, right? There were 2 incidences going through that count where exactly what you just said, Das, happened, right? Where like a sensor on one of the boosters' systems said, I've got a problem, and the other 3 sensors said, no, you're just not reading it right. And they just down selected the one sensor that was malfunctioning and launched fine with 3 on 2 boosters instead of 4. So yeah, happens all the time. Not a big deal. Yeah.
All right, so let me grab a couple more super chats and questions here, y'all. Still L minus 40 minutes, so on your clock, about 40 minutes from now is when that launch is still scheduled. As they work a couple issues, but that's normal for now. Musical Wolves says, got my landing shirt yesterday. Nice. Has the static fire for the Atlas V already happened? Static fires on Atlas Vs, Chris?
Yeah, no, it has not. Atlas, this is a good question. Atlas Vs do not static fire. They do not static fire out at a secret ULA facility or under cover of darkness here at 40. They don't static fire the RD-180 or the Atlas. At most, what they would do in some cases for really big missions is haul the Atlas out to the pad for a wet dress rehearsal where they
Right.
fuel it completely. And basically, in a wet dress for ULA, you do everything but ignite the engine.
Right.
And that's what they normally do if the customer requests a wet dress rehearsal. But a wet dress is not a standard part of the flow of an Atlas V, but can be requested if desired.
Right, like a practice run where they tank it up with fuel and everything, and they 3, 2, 1. All right, cool. Come back Wednesday and let's do the launch.
Yes, yes, and also I will say too, like, you know, there are different reasons, right? Different systems, different rocket engines built for different things. The RD-180, after it's ignited, really isn't meant to be shut down and reserviced. They can,
Right.
but it's not really meant for that, right? Whereas the Merlins are meant for rapid turnaround between flight. The RD-180 is not.
Yep.
So that's another reason why they don't do it. Also, it's a little problematic to light your engine next to two fully fueled solid rocket motors if you don't intend to also light them.
Yes.
Because while it's extremely safe and we take a lot of precautions to not have a solid rocket ignite accidentally, which we have been very good at here in the United States, it is still a possibility when you are lighting that. Right, so that's another reason you don't really want to static fire the Atlas when it's got a booster strapped to it.
The big SRBs, the big boosters on the side, are sort of one-shot deals. They're like bottle rockets. You don't static fire a bottle rocket and be like, okay, this is cool. Now we can launch it for real. Once you light those things, they are going somewhere. So another reason they don't do that.
Which brings up a good question, though, Das, because I didn't actually know this until I was talking to not our Rocketdyne, but Northrop Grumman, about their versions of solid rocket boosters and their lines, and I was surprised to know that you actually can static fire a solid rocket booster, which seems totally counterintuitive. But when they make the propellant,
Yep.
they keep a little bit of it back in reserve, and then they put that in a test motor and a test stand, like little tiny thing, and they ignite it so that they can understand the exact energy that's in the propellant pour, so that when they hand over all the files to ULA, they can say with confidence, here's exactly how the solids are going to burn when you ignite them. Yes.
So you test the fuel mixture that is used inside of the, I say fuel mixture, you test the SRB, you test the propellant that's inside the booster.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Let's see here. Technical Fool, hey Technical Fool, how you doing? Long time no see. Says something for the Dr. Pepper tanks. Don't be running out of stream fuel now. Appreciate the 5 pounds there. That is old school from my Twitch channel. I had a part in Kerbal modded to look like a Dr. Pepper can, and I would make Dr. Pepper can upper stages and stuff like that. I delivered a 6-pack to Duna once, but Technical Fool, hope you're doing well. Thanks for stopping into the stream today.
Are you the source of that blasphemous image of like the space shuttle peppered with like McDonald's and Pepsi logos?
No.
Corporate sponsorships.
It's just the Dr. Pepper thing. No.
It's just a Dr. Pepper thing.
It was just
I
the
like
Kerbal
that,
Dr. Pepper thing.
That was fun.
Hale Bumba, one of those, says Atlas with 1 booster is the funniest thing to launch. Thanks for the coverage. So that's an option. Like we talked about the 421 and the 401, but there is an Atlas 411.
And a 511 as well,
And a
which will
511.
debut later this year. Yes.
So
Yes.
it is possible for them to launch this in a wacky configuration where there is only 1 solid booster on one side of the rocket. And if you've ever tried that in Kerbal, that's not an option. Your rocket will do flips off the pad if you try that, and you don't do it exactly right, but ULA knows how to do it right?
Yeah, so this is one of the interesting things about about Atlas, that they decided not to port over to Vulcan, which is interesting. So Yeah, the Atlas, you can have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 solid rocket boosters on that, and they do not arrange them symmetrically. Even the 2 solid rockets that are on this one today are not mounted symmetrically. So the Atlas, even today, with 2 solid rockets, you would think perfect, you would do exact symmetry. Nope, they do not. Nope. Because of how they mount to the outside of the vehicle. So even today, right, even with an even number of solid rockets, the Atlas still has to use its RD-180 and the immense thrust vector control that it has, because basically at liftoff, it has to angle off of center line to account for the asymmetric thrust that's in the vehicle. So because it can do that, you can launch with 1, 3, or 5 solid rockets on there, and the RD-180 just can compensate for it in that regard. So yeah, the Atlas 411 and the 511, which will debut here later this year, are incredible to see because they just power slide off the pad. Like basically all the RD-180 does when it gimbals is just keep the rocket pointing up, and then it just lets the asymmetrical thrust push it off center line from the pad, but the boosters are arranged in a way where it's pushing it away from the tower. Right, and not toward the tower. So it's immensely complex. But yes, I agree. The 411 and the 511 are incredibly weird vehicles to see launch because you look at them and go, that shouldn't work, but it does.
And that actually answers another question from Shikamu here. How's the Atlas able to stay on the correct flight path with some missions having more boosters on one side than the other? Just like this one, it's got 2 boosters that are asymmetrically placed, both a little bit closer to the tower that says ULA on it there, and it's the combination of that RD-180 gimbal vectoring, like Chris was saying, and the cant. The nozzles are actually angled just a little bit on the SRBs, so they point through the center of mass, or they point close to the center of mass, so you don't get a big lever arm there trying to flip the rocket out. It's definitely something you can demonstrate in Kerbal if you use the little tools in the VAB to turn the rocket boosters and point through the center of mass and stuff. It really is. So a very cool rocket.
And I was going to say, if you download the Atlas mod for Kerbal, right, and you try to fly it with just 1 solid rocket, it's without McJeb, right? Or even if you get McJeb settings, the autopilot settings wrong with the pitch program, it will start to flip as it approaches max Q. So yeah, it's a delicate balancing act with this rocket. Yeah.
I can fly it without McJeb.
I see. There you go.
Of course, my name is Kerbal Space Academy. I've got like 6,000 hours in the game. So I am no replacement for proper GNC. Let's put it that way. I can't believe you called it McJeb, but I'm just going to let it slide.
Sorry.
I'm just going to go with McJeb, honestly, now. It's like discount Jeb. I say McJeb.
Oh,
it's just emphasis on syllables there.
It is, yes.
All good. I knew what you were talking about. So you successfully communicated. Here's one from Leonard M. saying, greetings from Germany. Could I get a hello? Have a bad day. Hey, Leonard, thank you for joining the broadcast. Hope you're not having too bad of a day. Hope we get a rocket launch for you here, and you're welcome to hang out with us. Thanks for being a part of the community here, right, Chris?
Indeed. Welcome to the stream, and hopefully we can get you an Atlas 5 launch today.
Absolutely. Here's one. We get this all the time from Steve S. What are the 4 towers for? How quickly can we answer that one?
Yes, I can answer that very quickly. Those are the lightning protection towers. You wouldn't guess it today, but we're getting into those months where lightning frequently strikes the ground with very strong storms, and we need to be able to protect the rocket and payload when it's out there, but also all the ground support equipment, all the fuel farms, all the propellant that are stored at pads. Those are what the 4 structures you see there are, so that if lightning is going to strike, if atmospheric conditions are correct, it strikes one of those towers and then is carried down through wires harmlessly to the ground where it can be dissipated safely.
Yep, absolutely. We hear that all the time. The big towers, those are lightning protection towers. Lightning catenaries is what ULA refers to them as. They say lightning catenaries. So, Steve, good question. We always get that one. Always happy to answer it. Here is one, Chris. Will we get views the entire way, or will it cut out because it's a military payload? We know sometimes we've got those classified missions where they cut the camera after stage set.
Not in this case, because it's not classified. Even though it's military, we will see it through, ULA will be live through deployment. And they have published, and they have actually published not just the timeline for exactly when everything will happen, even after payload separation. They have actually provided the final orbit that Centaur will leave SBIRS in. for us. So yeah, not classified at all. We'll see it throughout the whole thing.
All right. A good question there, Tiger Time. You've seen a couple launches, it sounds like, so thanks for putting that one in there. I like this. Dr. J said it's McJeb's Scottish cousin is McJeb.
There we go. I'm going to go with, like, that was part of my Scottish ancestry for pronunciation.
There you go.
There.
Yeah.
Clanberg.
So here's a discussion about RD-180s. This is LED
Yes.
Rocket saying how many RD-180s are left in the inventory, because this uses an outsourced engine. Can I call it that?
No, I'm not sure I'd call it outsourced engine. It's a good question. We don't actually think there are any left in reserve that aren't claimed for missions at this point. That's based on some math about how many that were said were left over and how many have now been grabbed because of the Kuiper constellation. I always say that differently than everyone else, but I can't say it the other way. I'm sorry. The Kuiper constellation for Amazon grabbed a lot of them. We don't actually think there are any, or if there are very, very few left in reserve that haven't been claimed at this point. So, this is all part of the tricky balancing act of phasing out the Atlas while Vulcan is still flying. And now, to be clear, like, the Atlas will still be flying a few years from now. It's not like it's going away at the end of this year or next year, but its service life is limited at this point, especially as Vulcan starts to come on. The other thing we're not certain about, though, that is an answer, that is partially an answer to the RD-180 question, we were talking about this behind the scenes, is we know there's a moratorium, especially for national security missions, in terms of buying more. We don't know if there's a moratorium on, like, commercial procurement of them for commercial rockets. We were under that impression, but in all fairness, we're not sure if that moratorium on buying them from the U.S. government is only for military missions or extends to civilian missions as well.
Gotcha. And to clarify really quickly, so United Launch Alliance doesn't actually build their own engine for the bottom of the rocket. They buy those engines from Russia, right? And there are some rules about how many they can buy, and are they allowed to buy more, and can they use them on certain missions. So that's what we're talking about. When we're talking about the RD-180s and how many are left, it's because United Launch Alliance does not make those. They source them, or they buy them from somewhere else for use on their rockets, right?
Yeah, it's basically like, like the RL-10 that they use on the Centaur upper stage is bought from Aerojet Rocketdyne. The RD-180 is bought from Energomesh. The BE-4 engines that will be used on the core stage of Vulcan are bought from Blue Origin. ULA just doesn't make their own engines. They just buy them, which is why I would say outsourcing isn't... I wouldn't say outsourcing. I'd just say it's no different than how they buy the other engines that they use on their rockets, except the U.S. Congress has a problem because it's a Russian engine.
Yeah, gotcha. Let's see here. Continuing to grab some more chats. Here's one. Why do they load the RP-1 into the Atlas 5 weeks or days before the launch? William McDaniel is asking.
Great question. So this is actually one of those moments where, because the Atlas doesn't use cryogenic or chilled RP-1 kerosene, it just uses straight up ambient. They can just load it as soon as they get to the pad, because kerosene is incredibly stable without an ignition source. So there's a really not an appreciable increase in risk to just put it in there, because it's ambient, it's not going anywhere, and unless you walk up to it and open the tank and strike a match, it's not going to ignite. So they can just load it in there, it won't boil off, and then that just saves them time on launch day, and it's no safety concern like when we go out to set cameras or anything like that, because it's inert. Basically, at that point.
I've stood right next to a fueled, the RP-1 was in, right next to an Atlas rocket, and I asked the question, I was like, wait, that's fueled right now? They're like, yeah, the SRBs are fueled, the RP-1's fueled, like, it's all fueled up, we're just waiting for the locks. And that is what's going on now with the venting there, right?
Yeah, so the venting that we're seeing right now is actually the liquid oxygen that is being vented from the Atlas core stage, the copper-colored core stage. And because on launch day, right, exactly what you're saying, right, all you got to do is put that liquid oxygen in your booster. But then the Centaur is a different story up on top. That Centaur upper stage uses liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen. So because those are both cryogenic, and you really don't want either of those in there until the last possible minute. you don't fuel them until launch day.
Absolutely. A lot of good questions here, y'all. It's a lot of good questions coming through chat, so thank y'all. Again, if you've got a question for us, that's why we go live an hour before the launch, so we can answer some questions about people that are interested in the launches. So tag us in chat at NASASpaceflight. What was up, Chris? You were jumping in?
Well, I was just going to say, if you look at this rocket right now and you get to the big pointy top, right, where the payload fairing is, if you just take that payload fairing off and pop Starliner on there instead, this is the configuration of the Atlas that we'll see in 2 months when Starliner launches, the 422. But we just don't call it the 422, we call it the N22 because it doesn't have a payload fairing, so N for no, for that first number, and then 22 for 2 solids and 2 engines on the Centaur upper stage. But in its basic form, this is what we'll see, just instead of a payload fairing, Starliner on top of it in a couple of months. Exactly.
Excellent. See, and folks, we're coming up about 23 minutes, L-23 minutes. Any critical updates on the LaunchNet, Michael? Are we hearing anything? Are they
still
tracking?
waiting for the anomaly team to report the status of that issue and if they have a path forward? But as of now, no other issues being worked other than that topping issue with the liquid oxygen tank on the booster.
Okay, good deal. Y'all, again,
And
Michael. Go ahead, Chris.
The only other update, weather officers were reporting as of 4 minutes ago there are no weather constraints for launch.
Excellent. So coming up in about hopefully 22 minutes, still waiting on that. And like we said earlier, y'all, we can't give you the actual audio from the Launch Control Center for Atlas. We're not allowed to broadcast that to you, but we are listening in and we'll provide you updates if we hear anything about the anomaly that they're working with, the topping off or anything. That's why I asked Michael there. He's listening in. Let's see here. Patrick Stewart says, glad to see another stream. For newbies, can you explain how and where ULA came from?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So ULA actually came about from a merger between the portions of Lockheed Martin and Boeing that built the Atlas V and Delta IV rockets. So basically, it used to be that those two companies owned the 2 rockets that ULA now operates. And basically when they were being created in the mid-90s with the Evolved Expendable Launch Vehicle program, they were supposed to be competition for each other. And then after they both kind of came online, some things came out about not great things that one of the companies was doing and trying to subvert, and there were accusations of favoritism and improper communication with blah, 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 blah. There was a whole bunch of fallout, and basically the solution was to take the portion from Lockheed that built the Atlas, take the portion take the portion of Lockheed and take the portions of Boeing. Thank you, Boeing. That build the 2 rockets and merge those 2 entities together under a single organization that became known as United Launch Alliance. So that's how ULA came to be, because they came to be after the Atlases and Deltas were already flying. But that's sort of why they came into ownership of both of them. And then kind of, unfortunately, when those things merged together, it created we have 2 different rockets, but it's the same company doing it, right? So we kind of unintentionally had a monopoly here, and that has been solved, and now we have multiple other rockets here as well. But that's sort of the quick and dirty of how ULA came to be. Yeah.
All right, so just continuing to operate, I guess, some of those Atlas designs previously, and then Vulcan is going to... Is this correct? Vulcan is going to be the first one that ULA actually put together themselves?
Yes.
Because they sort of inherited Atlas, and they sort of inherited Delta.
Yep.
And Vulcan is the ULA rocket. So that's where United Launch Alliance came from, because they united a couple other companies to continue providing those launch services to NASA and the government and all that sort of stuff, right?
Exactly, yes.
Good deal. I'm going to keep grabbing questions here, y'all. I see the Super Chat queue filling up. I see good questions coming in. You don't have to do a Super Chat to ask a question. We try to do a balance of both. We don't ever want it to just be a Super Chat reading stream. So let's see here. Here's one from Keith saying, can SBIRS detect space debris or asteroids? It's just looking for, downward looking, right?
Yes, so these are not outward-looking systems into space. They look down at the planet, specifically in infrared. So they're looking for the infrared heat signatures of missile launches, is what they are designed to look for. Yeah. So in that case, they wouldn't be of help in terms of like planetary defense or something like that.
Right. So they're looking down at the planet, watching big heat sources come up. That's the IR part of the space-based infrared system, is what SBIRS stands for. Let's see here. We've got a super chat from Aviation 365. This is interesting, and this is like a perception thing, I think. Aviation asked, why does it seem like every ULA launch has some ground equipment failure that Falcon 9 doesn't have? It seems like every Falcon 9 has gone on time, which we know isn't true, while every Atlas and Delta always delayed, which we also know isn't true because we just got a Delta IV Heavy launched on the first attempt. So,
Yeah.
what's the difference? I mean, we could talk about cadences and stuff there, right?
Yeah. So some of it has to come. Some of it does have to do with flight rate, right? The more you fly, the more your systems get exercised, the more you do static fires and pre-launch things very, very close to liftoff, the easier it is to find some things. But regardless, because SpaceX encounters these too, every single rocket has the equivalent of the light bulb incident, right? Where you could test the light bulb 1,000 times and it works, and you flick it for 1,001 and pop, off it goes.
Yep.
Right. This happens, and it happens to SpaceX. It happens to ULA. I think we see it happen more to you, or we're more cognizant of when it happens to ULA because they don't launch as much, right? Like there have been 14 or 15 launches out of Florida so far this year since January 1st. They've all been Falcon 9s. This is the first Atlas, right? So Atlas has one scrub. It's very noticeable, but all of those 14 Falcon 9 flights have not gone on their first attempt and have encountered issues. So I think it's more just like an unfortunate perception thing because the Atlases and the Deltas don't launch that often. It seems like one-offs when they get off the pad on their first attempt, but the Atlas has a very good track record in that regard. But again, some of the things you can't find with low flight rates, right, until you're on the pad actually doing it. Higher flight rates would help.
Yep.
And that's the balance, right? And it's worth pointing out too, like, because we had a significant gap here with Atlas. The last Atlas was November of last year with a classified NROL, National Reconnaissance Office satellite. It's not because Atlas didn't have customers in the last few months. It's because those customers that were scheduled to go encountered delays and had to delay. So, like Starliner wasn't ready. And then when it was ready, we had the International Space Station that wasn't ready. So that shifts Starliner to July because this one was sitting here. There's one in June, both for the U.S. military, and they get priority, right? So off goes Starliner to July. But we've got 3 Atlases coming in 3 months. That's a good flight rate for ULA. So we'll see how that is. But yeah, really just perception. Yeah, Michael.
And really quick, they are at T-minus 4 minutes in holding at this time. That is a planned built-in hold. So we are going to expect them to have the final pull to continue with the countdown here shortly. When that happens, we will pipe that in for you.
Perfection.
Yeah, and that is that's something we should actually hear, right, Michael?
Yes, that is provided by the ULA broadcast. So we are allowed to show that part.
Good deal. So as soon as we get that go, no-go poll, we'll listen in and see what the deal is. But again, folks, today we're standing by. We're about L-minus 15 minutes away from this Atlas V rocket. That's a United Launch Alliance rocket launching out of the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. That's Slick 41 that it's at. The 4 tall towers, those are lightning towers. Chris, I see that question like scroll through chat once every 90 seconds. So the 4 tall towers are lightning towers. Those are normal towers. The building that says ULA in the foreground, that's actually where they integrate the rocket. They sort of stack it up together. It's like a mini VAB almost for this pad specifically. And then off in the background, you can see ULA on the service structure right next to the rocket, which is venting, and that payload fairing up at the top. You can see the artwork on the payload fairing. We can't really get the detail of that artwork, but you can see it. And Chris, correct me if I'm wrong. Is that the fairing that's made in Brownsville? or is that the other fairing from the
Harlingen. It's
Apprentice?
Harlingen. Harlingen. Yes.
Harlingen,
yes.
next to Brownsville, but not in Brownsville.
Yeah.
Are those
They
where they're
do
made,
have-
Michael?
Yes, they're built in Harlingen. So I think it's the fairing and the interstate adapter, if I'm not wrong, but they do make the 4-meter fairing in Harlingen. The 5-meter payload fairing is built by Ruag in Switzerland, although that manufacturing is being moved to ULA's factory in Alabama. But I also do have an important update. The teams just outbriefed the issue with topping the Atlas V booster. They have agreed to make some adjustments to the parameters, and they are now looking good for launch. So at this time, the ULA teams are working no issues.
Good deal. I'm going to translate that really quickly. They're going to adjust some parameters, and this isn't necessarily exactly what it is, but this is sort of the idea. They have a sensor, right? And when that sensor says 8, everything's good. And maybe 7's also okay, or 6 is okay, but perfect is 5. But as long as it says 8, that's good. And maybe that sensor would read 9. And they may look at it, and they may say, wow, okay, well, that reads 9. It's supposed to be 8. And the anomaly team that Michael was talking about can come back together and say, well, realistically, 10 would be okay, but we just have 8 as the parameter. And so it's reading 9, but we'll go ahead and say that's okay. We'll go ahead with the launch because we know that really 10's okay. 9's fine. We were looking for 8, but we'll go with 9. That's sort of what they do when Michael says the anomaly team convenes and then they give us a briefing on the situation. Again, I made the numbers up and I made the sensor up. That's not exactly what's going on with this rocket, but that's sort of the idea where they look at some parameter and they know that they have these buffer zones built in. They have a little bit extra capacity and they can make the decision, hey, you know something, that's okay that reads 9, even though 8 would be what we really want. We can go with 9. That's sort of what happens when we get little call outs like that. So thanks, Michael, hopping in.
Do I understand that? Because wonderfully what I heard Michael say was, I have an important update, and then dead silence over my phone.
His important update is they're working no issue. Yeah,
okay,
they're working no issues.
Because I was like, that's very mean, and it took me a minute to realize, like, oh, the audio dropped.
Yes, they cleared the topping issue on the booster.
Okay,
Yes.
awesome.
There you go. So coming up in 11.5 minutes here, folks. Sounds like ULA working no issue. Weather is looking good as well. Last update from the weather officers was everything. There's no weather constraints in play right now. So things continue to tick towards a launch in just over 11 minutes. Let me grab a couple more questions here. Aviation 365 again says, love all the work you do to bring us the coverage. By the way, been following your broadcasts ever since SN4. A longtime viewer there, Aviation. Thanks for checking in and thanks for the continued support. Daryl Long says, the SN15 shirt and sticker getting delivered today. Thanks, everyone. NASA Spaceflight. A lot of people checking in with some of our merch store things. We've got a shop.nasaspaceflight.com. We've got like t-shirts and mugs and stickers for various events and Starlink and Eat Launch Scrub Repeat and all sorts of different things that you can buy in the shop as a way to help support what we do. So appreciate people checking in there, Daryl. Thank you for the super chat and getting some things out of the shop to help us keep these broadcasts up. Paul LaMadeline, $50 from Paul, by the way. Appreciate you, Paul. Says, first non-SpaceX I've been able to catch before launch. Thanks for all your hard work. Well, Paul, with that vote of confidence in the tune of $50 there, we will continue to share these events with people. We have a lot of fun chasing rockets, and we hope you all have a lot of fun, well, listening to us talk for an hour before we chase rockets, I think is the way to put it. Thank you so much for the $50. That's very, very generous. Let's see here. What? We're going to be ready for ULA SpaceX battles and KSP2 multiplayer? I don't know if that's a released feature or not, but we'll see. I'm certainly anxious to see KSP2 come out and the multiplayer features available there. And then lastly, more Darren actually says, are the strap-on boosters actually physically strapped on, or what is the mechanism used for separations? I think it's springs, right?
It's They're a better term would be bolted.
Bolt-on boosters,
or mounted or side mounted. Yeah, because they're not like physically strapped to the side of the vehicle. Yeah,
It's not like
it's
ratchet straps, like you'd be
no,
putting a load in
yeah.
the bed of a pickup or anything. That's not exactly how they work.
And a little man with a scissors going at 90 seconds. No, no, no. They're bolted on there. There are different separation mechanisms. Some rockets use pyrotechnics. Some use springs. I believe the Atlas uses a system of springs that aren't pyrotechnics, because part of the reason they have to hold them so long, because they'll burn out at about 90 seconds, but then Atlas will hold on to them until 2 minutes, 1 second into flight, and that's literally so it can clear the aerodynamic area of concern so that when they pop them off, they don't reconnect the vehicle and slam into the core stage.
Yeah, I could talk extensively about the Delta IV Heavy, how those boosters are put on the side, because I had the opportunity to go through the HIF where they assemble those, they put together those Delta IV boosters, and they want us to go, look at the engine, look at this big, huge rocket, and we spent like 20 minutes talking about this little box that had a frangible nut in it, and we talked with the guy that was installing the frangible nuts about how these frangible nuts work. It's literally explosives that cut a little bolt and nut. They cut the nut in half, and there's a box to hold the debris so the debris doesn't impact the rest of the rocket. So we spent 20 minutes talking about that, and we're standing next to this huge rocket, and all we wanted to talk about was the exact mechanism by which this box would contain the nut dust that was left over after the nut was broken by explosives. So.
Now think about that for an inline rocket, right? They're concerned about a potential part of a bolt getting loose on an inline rocket where there's very little below it that it could hit and damage, right?
Right.
That was a heritage system from the space shuttle.
Uh-huh.
And so now imagine the hold breath factor there, where like if that bolt comes off, you've got thermal protection system fragile wings right in its flight path.
Yep.
Amazing those things worked every single time.
Yep.
On the bolt catchers, yeah.
It's just the craziest thing. There's this big, massive feat of engineering, this huge Delta IV Heavy that's being put together. It's horizontal, and then there's this one little detail. It's a box to contain the debris of this piece of equipment.
Sorry, I'm going to interrupt. They have entered an extended hold now, so I'm going to take away your countdown timer. This is not going to be. I don't expect this to be a major problem. They just have to wait a bit longer for that topping to complete. I mentioned there was a topping issue earlier. They resolved that issue, but as a result, it sounds like it's going to take a bit longer than normal to get the booster topped off. So it's going to be an extended hold past the 15-minute planned hold time, but again, I do have a feeling this is going to clear relatively soon. It's not a major thing to worry about, but we're going to stand by for an updated T0 from ULA.
Excellent. Thank you, Michael.
Did they not do the Did they not do the poll?
No, they have switched to the not ready position. That's what they just said.
Okay. Oh, yeah, there's the ULA notification. Gotcha. Okay.
Okay. But that's something we can talk about, actually, because a lot of the times we have a launch going, and it's a launch going up to the ISS or a Starlink or something like that, and we're so used to these instantaneous launches where you either go now or you don't. What's our window like today? We don't just have to one opportunity to launch, right?
40 minutes. The window is roughly 40 minutes in duration, so they have until 1411, if I'm doing my math right. 1411 UTC, 1411 local time. Yeah, so 40 minutes.
Yeah. So they have a little bit of time here, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, that has a lot to do with the orbit that this is going into. They're not trying to meet up with the space station, where you have a very precise launch window, and you have to launch at a specific time so that you get right in the right slot to catch up to the space station, or let it catch up to you, actually. Because they're going up to GEO, this has a little bit more leeway in exactly what time they launch, right?
Yeah, and we can kind of see that. Like, they don't have a lot of leeway because it's only 40 minutes, and like huge communication satellites that carry a lot of propellant on board.
Yep.
Right, they get dropped off at geostationary transfer orbit, same place this one's getting dropped off into. You know, they have 4-hour-long launch windows because they have more propellant. They can do more in orbit.
Right.
This is smaller, doesn't have as much propellant, gives you a 40-minute launch window because the principle is the same, right? You're still trying to rendezvous with a specific point in space, right? Because we don't just throw these things up there and go like, okay, and it got to geostationary orbit at 130 degrees west.
Right.
No. Like each satellite in geostationary orbit has basically like a 40-kilometer box that they can operate in, and that's their geo slot, basically. And this one has its specific slot that it needs to get to. So just like going to the space station, you have to align orbital planes, you have to align longitude of the ascending nodes correctly, and that gives you your launch time, and then how much extra propellant is on board your satellite or reserved on
And
your
sorry,
satellite.
Chris, we just got
Yeah.
a UT0 of 37 minutes past the hour, so that's going to be 1:37 p.m. Eastern or 17:37 UTC. So only a 6-minute delay, so not much at all.
Not much at all. Very good. Very good.
I think that one was worth breaking in with. I saw the screen change. I was like, oh, the clock's counting again. I was waiting for Michael to hop in and say, we've got a new L-. So now they just needed a couple more minutes for that topping, right, Michael, of the LOX tanks. And we are now at L-9 minutes and 10, 9, 8 seconds there. So not a huge delay. I like counting down sometimes. Everybody loves a countdown, right?
Oh, we do. We do, yes.
Okay, let me grab a couple more of these. DYU says Chris G fan club. Are you allowed to do super chats, DYU? I guess we'll allow it, right, Chris? Chris will allow it. It says Chris G fan club in it.
Well, I'm definitely not going to complain.
We've got Hakan Ramsland Hold. That sounds like a Dune name. Well, I guess
it does.
House for Conan, but thank you for the support, Hakan. And we've got Dave H., who stopped in and said, got my SN15 shirt and stickers in the mail this weekend. The kids and I love them. Nice, Dave.
Awesome.
Excelente. And we've
I too got a lot of my SN15 merch this week, too. Yes. It's all arriving, people. It's all arriving.
Another similar message from Tyler Jones, $15, saying, slowly but surely getting my Starship Landing Club merch. Keep up the great work. So, Tyler, everybody checking in with their merch deliveries. I cannot believe that you're paying us extra to let us know that you... What sort of deal is that?
I love that.
You're using money to tell us that you got the merch that you ordered from us in the first place? That is a seriously sweet deal for us. Thank you so much for the generosity and support. Tyler Jones and everybody else.
Well, I can say, too, that part of the merch orders that I got, I'm wearing today because my Eat, Sleep, Scrub, Repeat shirt arrived yesterday, and I was very happy that it arrived yesterday.
You're not wearing that shirt, are you?
I am
not
indeed,
allowed.
Yes.
What? Chris?
Yeah, because it's scrubbed yesterday. So I wear it for the previous day.
That sways me a little bit.
This works. This works. My sarcastic upper levels wind shirts works on the second day. So yeah.
This is the sort of deal where you have to wear the Eat, Sleep, Scrub, Repeat shirt under something else, and then when the scrub is called, you like rip off the overshirt like you're a wrestler and be like, oh, I knew it, and then you have like the shirt underneath.
Remind me of that again when it's not 90 degrees in Florida.
Okay, and we have the status check coming up, so we're going to listen in to ULA here.
Good deal. Thanks, Michael.
Might take a minute for the audio to reach us because it's on a delay, but we should hear it soon.
Status check to proceed with terminal count. Atlas systems, propulsion. Go. Hydraulics. Go. Pneumatics. Go. LO2. Go. Water. Go. Centaur systems, propulsion. Go. Pneumatics. Go. LO2. Go. LH2. Go. HAZ gas. Go. Electrical systems, airborne. Go. Ground. Go. Facility. Go. RFFTS. Go. Flight control. Go. GCQ. Go. Operations support. Go. COM. Go. Umbilicals. Go. ECS.
Go.
Red line monitor. Go. Quality.
Go.
Op safety manager.
Go.
ULA safety officer.
Go.
Vehicle system engineer.
Go.
Anomaly chief.
Go.
Range coordinator.
Clear to proceed.
Launch director.
Launch vehicle is ready to launch.
Mission director.
You have permission to launch.
Proceeding with the count. ALC. Verify T0 is set for 1737 Zulu.
Verified.
And there you go.
All right. That's what we wanted to hear. I like those polls. All right. like I like hearing them go through all the different things. We don't get it on every single launch, but when ULA goes through the go no go poll, especially Chris, when you're out there on the causeway, you're waiting for the launch, and you hear him say go go go, clear to proceed. Your go for launch. It like gives you goosebumps. It's like the adrenaline kicks in, right?
It does, and my watch goes, your heart rate is climbing.
You know, we could display that on the live stream. We could have a little indicator in the corner that's Chris G heart rate, like
Chris
live
G
graph.
heart rate, I like that.
I can do that if you want. That'd be a fun thing to do for a launch one day. Not today, though.
Except when it glitches halfway through and it goes heart rate 0. Like
That's flatlined. Chris G flatlined all of a sudden. So, folks, I
SLS lifted
see.
off and that was... Sorry, go ahead.
I see the super chats and stuff. We are going to put a hold on the super chats for now. We will catch up with those after the launch, but we're now less than 5 minutes before the launch. Again, this is a United Launch Alliance Atlas V rocket in the 421 configuration. It's launching out of Space Launch Complex 41 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, taking the SBIRS. SBIRS.
SBIRS.
SBIRS. However you want to pronounce it, it is the Space-Based Infrared System GEO-5 mission up in about 4 minutes here. We just heard the poll. Everything is go for launch, and they are cleared to proceed. So from here on out, Chris, if you need any help getting ready, let me know. But it is time to see if we get this thing flying.
Yes, it is indeed. So just as a reminder, as we head into the business end of the countdown, what's launching today, as Dash just said, is SBIRS Space-Based Infrared System GEO Satellite number 5. It is part of an early warning missile launch detection system for the U.S. government, U.S. military, and allied forces around the world. It is not a classified satellite, so we will be able to follow it along here on the ground and with ULA through payload separation. It is going into a geostationary transfer orbit. So the Centaur upper stage, after 2 burns, will deliver the satellite into a 925 by 35,753 kilometer geostationary transfer orbit. It will then be up to SBIRS 5 itself to raise that perigee of 925 kilometers up to 35,786, which is geostationary orbit. So the satellite will be left with some work, which is a very common launch profile that is utilized as what we are expecting today. The total flight time from liftoff to payload separation is roughly 34 minutes and 30 seconds. So that is what we are waiting for today.
Good deal. So 2.5 minutes here, y'all. And in all those numbers that Chris just said, Chris was basically telling you that the rocket is taking the satellite to space. But it's a very specific spot in space that it's taking. That's what all the numbers were there. Yes. Chris, really quickly, do you want to do the commentary over the camera mic, or what do you want to do there? Leave it up to you. How you feeling?
I would prefer if you did it.
Got it.
Yes.
All right, so we will be switching over to the high-def camera microphone there, and then I will talk about what's going on whenever we get the launch. But under 2 minutes now, y'all. And Michael, whenever we're ready for that, go ahead and let us know that we've switched to camera microphone.
Okay, we're on to camera microphone.
All right, you'll get a little bit of the wind noise there as we've swapped to that mic. Normally we don't have that mic online because there's a fish jumping.
Oh, yeah.
Watch the water. There were fish jumping down there.
Oh, yeah, all the time. All the time.
Okay. So, again, 1.5 minutes here before the United Launch Alliance rocket is set to go. Had a little bit of an issue there, but United Launch Alliance just went through the entire poll saying that they were green across the board and clear for the launch. It is a thing, folks. It is a thing. The fish, I guess, get excited as well. You'll see them jumping in the water down there. But a big thing about this launch, watch the massive plume. Sometimes the launches look sort of clean, and there's not really a cloud of smoke behind it. Atlas, when it's got the SRBs on board, literally rides to space on a pillar of smoke. That's those 2 strap-on boosters we were talking about earlier. And you will notice, you'll see exactly where that rocket went, and you can also visualize the winds that it has to fly through. Because shortly after the rocket passes through, you'll see the winds actually shearing some of the plume of smoke from those SRBs. So that is an artifact of the SRBs. It looks like a launch. If you ever get an opportunity to see an Atlas fly, especially if it's got SRBs, that's one of the first launches that I took my own family to see. But coming up on 30 seconds here, and let's see if we get a successful launch.
And the final poll was just go.
Final poll was just go. Remember, it takes a few seconds for the sound to reach the camera, so you'll see the big plume and you'll see the rocket lift off well before we get the sound. But you should know when the sound gets to Chris's location over there. So here we go. And that big plume and liftoff of the SBIRS GEO-5 mission riding to space on the Atlas 421 from United Launch Alliance. Look at that go. You can see the smoke and the huge pillar of fire behind the rocket. That is those SRBs. Got a little bit of a roll there even. Now you can see both the strap-on boosters. Sound starting to reach the camera. It'll get louder. And the crackle as well. Look at Fleet Cam. Like I said, riding to space on a pillar of smoke. You get that unbroken trail from those SRBs. I like to use the terminology, it sounds like it's ripping the atmosphere. You get that crackle in the background. It looks like we just saw some sort of aerodynamic effect there. We'll have to roll back the tape and see what that was. Fantastic track by Chris here.
And coming up on SRB Burnout.
And there we go. With this camera, we should see the burnout very clearly, and it will hold on to them for just a few seconds, clearing the range. Let's see if we can actually visualize the separation of the two SRBs. It's going downrange in a hurry here. I'm just watching for the two little dots that indicate the boosters have separated.
Jettison confirmed.
You can see tumbling away from the back. There you go. You get a little flash of white, and those are the SRBs. I'm getting two flashes back in the plume. Those are the separated SRBs as the core booster, the center booster, continues on its way, powered by those RD-180s. Excellent track there, Chris. And this is the part where if you're watching the United Launch Alliance broadcast, they're saying, and now the vehicle weighs half of what it did 90 seconds ago, and that sort of stuff. I didn't jot down all those numbers here for you, so.
Well, look at that roll. That's
yeah. So you can see the Space Coast down there behind it. Broken clouds over the land, and then just clearing right over there. And we can bring Chris back as well, right?
Yep, Chris, you're good to come back.
All right, awesome. How was that? I think I tracked it as long as I could firmly tell it wasn't a plane.
Yep, we saw the booster separation for sure. We could see the boosters tumbling away after separation. And that thing was getting out of dodge downrange from you, so good job there.
Yes, it was. Woo.
Incredible onboard view there as you look back towards the Florida coast.
Wow, look at that.
We just saw a really nice roll as the booster aligned itself after jettisoning the SRBs.
Yep. Is that
you can still kind of hear the popping.
Or?
It's the gap between the two nozzles on the RD-180.
Ah, because there's a turbopump exhaust back there too, right? Like the out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look at it receding away from the close to Florida there with the curve of the Earth appearing in the background.
Gosh. Look at that. So we
Michael,
should be
everything. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, right? We should be fairly close to staging here. Yeah.
There it goes. Shut down.
Apparently they're staging it in Kerbal
Oh,
Space
there we
Program.
go.
Wow, there we
Yes.
go.
Woo! There we go.
Oh,
Pre-start on
look
the
at that.
RL-10. Look at that. Okay, RL-10, do your job.
And they just called out nominal performance on the RL-10.
Yep. You can see that booster move away. Look at how that booster is being left behind.
That's Florida. That's the entire Florida Peninsula with Lake Okeechobee there. There go the payload fairings.
Wow.
That was the
Oh,
yeah, there go the
look at the
payload
fairings.
fairings. Look at that.
Has ULA significantly upped their game here, or am I dreaming?
Wow.
I don't recall seeing the payloads go by a ULA mission like that anytime recently.
There was an Atlas. There was one last year. Yeah, where it was a gorgeous pre-launch mission, and it and yeah, we got a gorgeous payload separation where you could even see it going through the plume expansion. Yeah.
Yep. Doing another roll here. Look
but
at
that
this.
was incredible. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's as it transitions to closed loop control.
And the wobble on the nozzle there, is that a nominal wobble?
I think. That looks like a lot, though. I don't know. I'm not going to say anything else about that. Yeah.
You can see it. You can see it still actively controlling itself. So
yes. Okay, and now this is what we expect, because it takes 10 minutes for the Centaur to finish hauling it up into its preliminary orbit. So the Centaur single-engine upper stage is still firing. It's about it will fire until about the 15-minute mark into the flight to finish the ascent of the vehicle. It is a very, very low thrust-to-weight engine, but a very efficient engine from an ISP or a specific impulse standpoint.
Right.
So basically, instead of the second stage doing most of the job of hauling the stack into orbit, the Atlas actually reverses that. And most of the work in terms of the velocity change or the delta V change is done by the core, the booster. And then the Centaur upper stage is left with significantly less part of the job to do because of how it's designed. So for that reason, it's a very, very long second stage ascent to orbit here.
And really quick, we just got a call out to confirm that the RL-10 is performing nominally, and also the booster performed better than expected.
There we go.
Okay. And I like this. We're going to switch back and forth. Sometimes we've got like graphics and stuff like that on the ULA stream. So we'll use Chris's camera here for just a few minutes. Chris, you are going to have to pack up here shortly, right?
Yeah, but not right now. We're good right now.
Yeah, just let us know. Again, folks, Chris is part of the press team that's escorted out there to the causeway, and when it's time to go, everybody has to sort of pack up, and then the personnel, the press personnel, escort all the press members away from the site. So Chris will have to pack up this camera shortly. But y'all know the drill. You know what we're looking at right now. Who in chat knows what we're looking at right now? I'm going to see who can tell me
I don't have
what
to,
it is.
I don't even have to look at the screen to know what it is.
Tony got it first. Tony said the empty pad is good. There is a launch pad that no longer has a rocket on it because we just got to see everybody look. There's 1,000 people in chat spamming empty pad. Das's favorite view. That's it right there. My favorite view on launch day, a launch pad that no longer has a rocket on it because the rocket's on its way to orbit. No, it's not lightning towers or jumping fish. Do you see a bunch of jumping fish, Chris?
In general, down here, yes.
We'll have to go back and watch the replay. We don't usually do recaps of these, but I'll go back and scroll back to live stream and see if I can't see the fish jumping when they get hit by sound or something.
Yeah, there are a lot of fish that were jumping in the lagoon here today, but had a liftoff. Yeah.
Excellent. And the smoke on the right-hand side over there, Chris, that's a normal thing.
It's not smoke actually. I'm glad someone pointed this out. That is the liquid oxygen storage facility. So where all of that liquid oxygen was stored before they pumped it into the rocket, they're now venting it post-launch to get it into its post-launch safe configuration for when people have to go back to the launch pad. So not smoke, not a fire. It's actually just gaseous oxygen being vented to get the ground support equipment tank into the proper post-launch condition.
It's almost like I called it smoke on purpose, knowing that you would tell us what it actually was. I try to speak in chat terms, like, why is there smoke on the screen? And then actually, that's not smoke, that's liquid oxygen vapor. So, anyways, Michael, how are we doing with ULA? Any new information? Everything just continuing nominally with that Centaur burn?
They keep having nominal callouts, and if you want a Michael rant, I will go on a rant about the ULA webcast right now, which is still showing talking heads and PR videos during an active burn of an engine. I mean, I don't know. If ESPN cut to the studio during a sporting event when the ball was in play, I would not be happy as a viewer. That's all I'm going to say.
A sporting event when the ball was in play. Nice. Well, I guess it's either the animation or the talking heads. I think doesn't the customer decide a lot of that? I know ULA gives the customer a lot of decision-making authority over the webcasts.
I mean,
I've heard that at least.
That's what's going on right now. That's all I'm going to say.
It's all customer information about the customer and how awesome the satellites are and that sort of thing.
Great conversation for the coast phase.
And I will leave that conversation in both of your capable hands. I got the signal to start wrapping up if I could on my end. So I think that will do it for my part of the broadcast, or my participation in the broadcast. It's been phenomenal. Hopefully Centaur is still doing its thing.
Well, sorry,
yes,
Chris.
I know. Centaur's still doing its thing, taking the payload into its initial parking orbit. I will leave you in the capable hands of Doss and Michael as I pack up here. But what a gorgeous start to the mission. Here's to a successful completion and separation of the launch and the spacecraft from the rocket here in the next half hour.
All right, we've got Fleet Cam as well, Michael. It's just going to show some clouds off in the distance. But Chris Gebhardt there, folks, out in the field. Chris rolled out his newly vaccinated self to the causeway to bring us that live view and all the live Q&A. Massive thanks to Chris. He's the assistant managing editor for NASASpaceflight, lives over there on the Space Coast, may have already disconnected before
I'm
did.
right here.
Okay, good. I was rapidly scrolling to see if you were still connected, but you can follow him on Twitter at @ChrisG_NSF. Chris, thank you so much for getting out there today and sharing that with us.
Oh, my pleasure. An absolutely great launch. Great to hear and feel the solid rockets again. Yes.
All right. Good deal. Chris, like we said, is going to be packing up because he was out there on the camera. And what is our plan here, Michael? We know that they're continuing. It's like a 10-minute burn for the upper stage here, and then it's
let's just see
34 or something?
Watch the perigee star in the upper right. It's at negative 650 right now. It's going to very quickly go positive, and that's when you're going to know that the upper stage has reached orbit, which should happen very soon here, as you can see that number quickly decreasing. But once that reaches orbit, we can probably wrap up.
Okay, what's the timing to the payload separation today?
It's, I believe, 40 minutes to an hour. I could be mistaken.
Okay. Let's see here.
It's a while until spacecraft separation.
Right. So there you can see the perigee altitude is still under the Earth. That's why it's negative 60, negative 50, 40, 30. And then right there, the perigee in the upper right-hand corner goes positive. And so now it's 50 kilometers above the surface, coming up on 100 kilometers above the surface. But once that gets high enough, we have, it says live data. I like it. Do we know what the expected stopping point here was today, Michael, off the top of your head?
Not for the parking orbit. I have to go back and check. But it's 42 minutes into the mission is spacecraft separation.
42 minutes into the mission. Gotcha.
But I complained about ULA's talking heads and whatnot, but I will say, out of all the launch providers, they have by far the best graphic of the mission when they don't have onboard cameras. I love the shot because it's actually using real telemetry. When a thruster fires on the rocket, you'll see the RCS thruster fire in the animation, and also that perigee and apogee is super cool. Some other launch providers do not like to give that data, but ULA does. So I will give credit to them for that.
Good deal. I'll read out a couple while we continue to wait for the end of this burn. I will read out a couple more super chats and stuff like that that came in. Let's have a look here. Billy the Blade stopped in as well a little bit ago saying, oi oi from the UK. Have to say your SN15 t-shirt and sticker arrived and sat watching your amazing peeps in the shirt now. Keep up the great work. Billy, thank you so much for dropping in, and thank you for being a part of our broadcasts here. Here is Rob with a question. Exactly who is NASA Spaceflight? Just started watching and love the expertise and info you guys have. What are your backgrounds? Rob, we're an independent news organization that's, 15, 16 years in the business of covering spaceflight. We just recently had our anniversary. But we are a group of people with a lot of different specialties. We've got writers and reporters that do articles and do interviews with the subject matter experts from the companies that are doing all these missions and science experiments and stuff like that. We've got some broadcast side folks like me. I am a commentator and streamer. I design a bunch of our robotic cameras that we deploy in the field and the broadcast kits that we send out to Chris so he can bring you those live views. Michael does a lot of our code in the back end. You've heard Michael say a couple times. But we're a group of people. I guess we sort of started off as enthusiasts, and we came together to provide.
Shutdown. Sorry.
Thank you. No, don't apologize.
And
so,
I did go back and check what the orbit was supposed to be for this initial parking orbit. They were targeting. Wait for this. A 175-kilometer perigee. As you can see on your screen, there's a 175-kilometer perigee.
Yep.
And they were targeting an apogee of 4,535 kilometers. So that, I mean, I know it's hard to understand what is good, but I will tell you for this industry and the types of speeds that we see them eject a CubeSat, they have a couple of CubeSats on board, that is an incredibly precise parking orbit insertion. And
we're going to get one of those tweets from Tori with the bullseye on it that seems to peeve a lot of people off, but that's what they're doing when they put it into the exact orbit that was requested within a very small margin of error. That's what ULA is advertising. You know, the bullseye graph that shows, like, here's the percentage, how close we were to what the customer requested and said was okay. So looking like a fantastic job of that super efficient and super accurate Centaur upper stage.
There's two the EZ3 and the EZ4 CubeSats are the small satellites on board, but what we just saw get deployed, and there goes EZ4.
Excellent. They even have the thruster firings there. So you see a couple thruster firings as they go for a roll, or they go for, I don't know if this is an ullage or a correction or exactly what this thruster firing would be for, but they're animating those as well. Those are near the aft end of the Centaur there. They've got a couple smaller thrusters that are used for attitude control. Oh, as soon as I start to talk about it, they go back over here. So we can look at the water over on Fleet Cam again. No view of the pad or anything, or the rocket, because it's halfway around the world by this point. So to finish the thing I was talking about there, that's sort of what we do. While I was answering your question, Michael was looking up the question or the information that the previous question had asked about, or the previous commentary had asked about. So just a team of people here. I don't know. I guess we can't say we're unprofessional. That doesn't sound right. We have a lot of fun doing this, let's put it that way. Mothman Photography comes through and says, official poll to say Delta Yeet when talking about Delta V. Are you talking about Delta 5 or Delta V there? Because it could go either way, Mothman. I'll need a clarification there. Donald Clark, been watching spaceflight for a while, it looks like. Remember launches from Mercury, as in the Mercury program, I would assume, not watching from the planet Mercury. Still thrills me. Thanks for your enthusiasm. Donald, we have a lot of fun, like I said. Thank you so much. Apparently we're watching a tanker leave port now. It's got cranes on it, so maybe that's a bulk cargo ship of some sort. Well, we need Gav on to tell us exactly what ship is leaving and what it's carrying or not carrying. Bob Forrester says, got my SN15 mug and sticker, waiting on a t-shirt. Thanks for all the fantastic coverage. Bob, thank you for the support. It's possible because of the generosity of viewers like you. Not to sound too PBS there, but it's true. You help us pay the bills, so thank you. Sam Halter, sneaking through. Sam, hope you're doing well today. Great coverage as usual. Keep up the great work. Got my decals today. Thanks again. You are welcome. Always a pleasure to see your bright and shining face in chat over there, Sam. Thanks for stopping in. And we appreciate the support there as well. Aline, thank you for the support. Looking like Brazil is where they're hailing from. But we do appreciate the support. Did I miss anything else, Michael? Since all the footage we have is a tugboat helping a cargo ship leave Port Canaveral, and we're super light on GEO-5 footage. That may be the indication that it's time for us to spool down this live coverage.
Yeah, we did just get the graphic back, right? I think I agree with you, and the coast phase will continue for a bit longer, and if you want to continue to follow the mission as they do the next burn, you can always check out the ULA feed on their channel for the rest of the mission.
All right, if you want, on the presentation layer, I can do a replay real quick. I know I didn't telegraph that at all, but I've got it up. And we'll leave the broadcast here with a replay of today's launch of that SBIRS GEO-5 mission with United Launch Alliance.
As I work to get that up, but thank you all for watching.
I did not tell Michael about that at all. I'm sorry about that, Michael. Today on the broadcast, look, I'll stall, all right? Today on the broadcast, like we already said, we had Chris Gebhardt out there out in the field running our remote camera rig and providing some expertise and answers to your questions. And then back in the studio, rapidly clicking on things in a frantic manner because I did not tell him I was going to be able to do this. We had Michael Baylor. Michael, I'm not going to ask you to say anything because I know you're busy, but we appreciate you hanging out and keeping the comms net in your ear there so you could keep us informed as to what was going on with United Launch Alliance. And then also back in the studio, my name is John Galloway with NASASpaceflight. If you watch one of our broadcasts, you'll probably recognize my voice. I talk a lot about rockets, but happy to share these sorts of experiences with y'all. It's cool to see so many people excited about spaceflight, and super happy that we are able to share these events with you. Should I have typed that in the back channel first?
There you
Michael?
go.
Aha! Okay, good deal. So this is the replay of the launch, folks, and we will leave you with this. Thank you so much for joining us for today's rocket as that Atlas V goes ahead and gets ready to say later, nerds, as it carries its mission up into orbit. We'll let this roll for a little bit, then we'll just do the outro, and we'll see these nerds later, Michael, okay?
Sounds good to me.
You like how I tried to time that? Where it was like, stalling until it takes off so I could say later, nerds, at the time that it takes off, etc.
Very good, very good.
That was intentional. Anyways, folks, we'll see you later. Thanks for hanging out with us today.
Pressure looks good.
Doubling up. Roger, roll, Atlantic. Fire downside, speed off. Yikes. You bet. Concur. We don't need any more of these.